Okay, hi.
Hi! That's much better.
Yeah, this is great.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited and nervous for whatever reason to be here.
That's amazing. Going live is nerve-wracking, I just feel like always.
Yeah,
And I told you I have a million questions for you, so I can understand being nervous.
that actually doesn't make me nervous. That makes me happy because then I don't have to think of what to say.
Yeah, we don't have to try to come up with stuff.
Do you mind if I
So I
drink wine?
mean, yeah, absolutely, go for
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Just to kick it off, this Danny Masterson trial, oh my gosh,
Oh my
this has
gosh.
been intense. Did you see that they didn't reach a verdict yet?
Yeah,
They went
and I
home
got
today. Yeah.
I got that email and all I saw was verdict and my heart dropped.
Uh
But
huh.
now we wait.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
Tony Ortega said that a bunch of journalists were surprised and thought that they would reach a verdict right away. And I was like, there are 3 counts being charged. There's no way I feel like they would reach a solid verdict in 1 day of deliberations.
Yeah, for sure. And it also seems like because, frankly, the lack of evidence, of physical evidence, it seems it's
Mm-hmm.
putting people on a wide spectrum of whether they think he'll get convicted or not.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if I think it might take a little while because it's so tricky.
I
We'll
think it will.
we'll see. It's
Yeah.
it's been infuriating to see for me, like the way that Scientology was involved and yet how they can't really put it in the case, but
Mm,
it still shines through in these particular like unavoidable pieces that keep popping up. And
right.
oh my gosh, I wish they could go into it and they just can't. And it frustrates
It
me.
must be so frustrating because anyone, especially you, but anyone who knows anything about Scientology and who has been following this for a
Right.
long time, I mean, you growing up in it, like, you know how much more there is to all of this and like how complicated and nuanced it is. And
Yeah.
I've even felt frustrated kind of reading and like watching it and being
Right.
like, oh, but will they understand? Like, will they understand what this means?
I know. I don't know. I'm so curious about you and how you got into you're so knowledgeable about Scientology and how you got there.
So I first saw Scientology in the aftermath, the first season when it aired, when I
Okay.
gave birth to my first daughter in the hospital.
Okay.
And my husband and I, it was just on like A&E, and my husband and I watched it and we were like, that's wild, like how
Right.
crazy. And then the year after that, we started what we call our deconstruction process from Christianity. We were
Okay.
in kind of like a culty the denomination of Christianity. I don't even know to call it a denomination because it had to do with like a lot of stuff that I would say like normal mainstream Christians like aren't into, but it also wasn't like fundamentalist Baptist,
Okay.
anything like that. So our deconstruction process started. I have a whole long story about going from our weird culty church into business coaching and MLMs. Like there was a connection there of like a pipeline of how I got
Right.
there. And so I watched all the rest of Scientology in the aftermath, the next 2 seasons, because it just fascinated me. And then
Yeah.
I watched The Vow, the Nexium documentary, and
Yeah.
I was like, there are so many things that are similar
Yeah.
to each other. And then I was seeing the similarities in my deconstruction from
Right.
Christianity. And then I
Right.
was seeing all these similarities in MLMs and like
Yeah.
business coaching, the type of business coaching that I was involved in, and the
Okay.
high ticket prices. I was like in this whole realm of high ticket, high ticket,
Okay.
high ticket. So like the Scientology, how much they charge for courses, I was like, that seems normal. Like
That's
it's so expensive.
right.
It wouldn't
So
seem
crazy.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw all of these similarities. Then I had to deconstruct out of like my business. Like my business and livelihood was wrapped up in coaching and spirituality. and I just started deconstructing it all at the same time,
Yeah.
freaking out,
Yeah.
and just dove headfirst into researching everything I could about cults and undue influence, and reading Stephen Hassan's books and seeing his influence continuum, and realizing that it all exists on a spectrum and it's also nuanced. I just couldn't stop researching. And so I've been researching for the last like year, and started posting on TikTok because my husband was sick of listening to me.
That's how I got on TikTok.
Yeah, I was like, the people of TikTok will listen. Like, they will
Yeah.
love this stuff.
They have no choice. No, just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. If I
Yeah.
come across your For You page, you'll listen to me. So, yeah, that's why I know. That's why.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because I feel like my deconstruction in some ways, I wasn't involved with the business, but very much went to Steve Hassan and the bite model, and then just diving in and realizing so many similarities. We have a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses or witness in our community,
Oh wow.
as well. So I overlapped with some of them, and just so many, I don't know, so many similarities that are frustrating because it's that boiled frog thing. Nobody knows it's happening to them until you see it completely from the other side, and then you see it. But I don't think that people in the cult situation in Scientology, I don't think they see it.
No. Oh
And
no. When I was in, like, even our church, we had this young adult group. My husband and I were leaders of our young adult group. And we all ended up being kind of the misfits of our church. Like, we were all kind of rebels a little bit. We all got in trouble for all kinds of different things. We've all deconstructed, but when we were in it, people, friends outside of it would be like, you guys are definitely in a cult. Like, that's definitely for sure what a cult is. And we're like, no, it's not. You
not
guys don't
me.
know what you're talking about. We're
Yeah.
safe. We're happy. It's fine. Like,
Right.
you definitely can't see it
When
until you
you
do.
until you do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In your group, the cult that you were raised in, that you grew up in, did they give you training about, like, if someone says you're in a cult, you
No.
this? I
No.
wonder if
No, they didn't give us like training. So I actually didn't grow up in it. I
okay,
joined it when I was like 19, 20 years old
okay.
with my now husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. He grew up much more Christian than I did. And
Okay.
he has a lot more religious trauma from growing up in it and in a similar type of Christianity. But
Uh,
I came in from dating him and being spiritually like curious. So when I was in it, we weren't trained on how to respond if someone said we were a cult, but we asked the leaders all the time, like, hey, these people say we're in a cult, are we? And they would tell us why we weren't. And like, they would tell us some things that we could say of like why it's not a cult.
yeah. I think that's also a telltale sign
Yeah, yeah.
of a cult.
Right.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Hey, I just realized we're on my live, and maybe we should be on yours. Do
Oh,
half and half.
I think we're both like, I think we're both
Oh,
on, yeah, on live, like at the same time. I think. I don't know.
okay.
I can't figure out how this works. However, we're doing it. It's working.
Okay.
I'm
We're here.
fine with
We're
it.
here. We're here.
I'm curious because I've seen in some of your content that you worked at the Celebrity Center when you were in
Mm-hmm.
Scientology. So, are you familiar with anyone in the Danny Masterson case? Did you know any of these people, or like?
It's funny. I told you that that there was nothing I didn't want to talk about. I am familiar. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm younger than a lot of those kids,
Okay.
or call them kids, I guess, because when I lived in LA, I was at the Celebrity Center. That was my public. I went there after school. I walked down there. I did like this weird Scientology homeschooling up in Los Feliz Hills. Walked down to Celebrity Center, and then was there the rest of the afternoon. So a lot of these people in the trial, mostly, I don't really want to name any names. They were all just
Oh,
hanging out
you
around
totally
there.
don't have to.
They were
Yeah.
all just hanging down there, but they were much older than me. But I did date one of, not the actual anybody who was on the stand, but I did date, properly date one of their little brothers. And
Oh, Oh.
Yeah, and he was a nice person. So I don't
Yeah.
really have, it's weird. I did know his older brother, and I don't think he's a nice person. But I don't want to come out and say his name and be like, he's not a nice person. But there's one guy who was there all the time, right? There was a guy
Yeah.
there all the time. And we
I
both
think
know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about.
So, like, where's that guy? How come
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's not cool, but I don't
Oh
want to
no,
like
you
condemn his
totally don't have
whole
to. I
deal
was
or
more wondering because I wanted to ask you like how you're feeling about all of this. Like, is this affecting you in ways that you thought it wouldn't?
so
Are
much.
you, yeah,
So
are
much.
you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
shocked? Is it something that is a long time coming and you knew about for a long time? Like not details, but just, felt like it's been a long time coming, or is it like super shocking to everyone?
I wasn't shocked at all. Not for any other reason. Okay, a few reasons. Scientology is pretty lax about their approach to sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like in some cases you save sex till marriage. I shouldn't even say that word on here, right? Save your intimacy for after marriage. If you're
Yeah.
or a lot of people get married so that they can get better birthing, right? They can get better accommodations.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so marriage and intimacy are they're kind of thrown around. It's very like singular lifetime. Like it's kind of, it doesn't mean the same things that it might mean in another religion. So everybody does everybody. Everybody
Yeah.
marries everybody and divorces. And then, so that laissez faire of like going out and partying and having that
Mm-hmm.
around does not surprise me at all. It also does not surprise me at all that these ladies are saying what happened to them. Like, straight
Yeah.
up wrote reports, went to their church, their chaplain. Scientology insists on calling it a chaplain. And he's the guy who can tell you if you can sue another Scientologist or you can, like, what you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just told, like, nothing happened to you, move along.
Yeah.
And then knowing that abuse, for one, knowing there's records of that is super frustrating. Why would a church cover that? Like, why would a church withhold
Right.
those documents? And then what Jane Doe 2 said, that he had a sec check, which I know that's like Scientology, whatever, garble, de-garble, but he must have had a huge confessional about everything that he had done
And
with
it would
women.
have been
Like,
written down, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so how come at that point there wasn't something happening? Like they're all
Yeah.
about responsibility, ethics, integrity. If you go on Scientology's website, these are the words they say so where's that? Where'd that
Right.
go? So
It's so awful.
there's a sleaze too that I have to admit, like I always felt when I was around that group, like there was like also the Elfmans were around at that time. Like there's a few people that got really popular that weren't popular yet.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just always this like elitist, sort of statusy, sleazy, very Hollywood, right? But
Yeah.
I was pretty young. I was, 14 and I wasn't raised there. So when I got there, I was at first, for the first bit, I was like, everybody is so shiny and beautiful. And I wanted to be an actress. And I like
Yeah.
moved to LA, and my mom got like Patrick Renna's mom, the guy from Sandlot, was like my manager for like
Oh
one
my
year.
gosh.
And then I got these photos taken, and I never did anything. I did audition for My So-Called Life. That's all I ever did. Like one audition. I couldn't hack it. My skin was not thick enough for that.
Oh no. I was
No,
gonna ask.
no. And that was a really weird period of my life anyway, but I
Yeah.
basically had, my mom wasn't home. My father had just died. My brother didn't live at home. I went to school in Hollywood. I walked down to Celebrity Center. And once that shininess wore off, yeah, to answer your question, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised at one bit.
Wow. Someone commented and said, "Thank you for sharing, Liz." And they're happy
Oh,
you broke away. And I said, "You can see the comments too, right? Because
I can.
okay, cool."
I try to ignore them, all the writing for
I
the most
know
part.
sometimes
But somebody said something.
I try to ignore them too, because sometimes people jump on and will like troll, and it's like it just, I can't focus
Yeah,
on people trolling and like talking about normal things. But I like when
right.
people are nice, I want to be like, oh, thank you. But then I get so
Yeah.
distracted. Um so yeah, so you're feeling a lot of feelings just watching it all go down. And
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that because of that sort of laissez-faire, I keep saying, approach
mhm.
to intimacy, and then you also have children are adults in young bodies, right? So
Yeah,
the age that you're active, or it's fine that you're active, is pretty young, really. I mean, I think overall, other religions expect you to wait a lot longer than
yeah.
Scientology
Oh,
might. Um,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, there's not like a set anything. It's just if you think about the culture of it,
Right.
you're an adult in a little body, and you're responsible. Like one of the first things you're responsible for is your body, and then the second thing would be like intimacy, procreation. So when you're 8 or something and somebody is inappropriate, or they think you're flirting, they'll be like, you have 2D flow. I know I'm talking all kind of, again, garbly
No,
garble
I
here,
love
but
it
my
though. I'll ask. I feel
okay.
like even when you use lingo, I get the gist of it. And anybody that's watching, if you want to ask like what she means, feel free. But I feel like I can
Okay.
get the gist, and if I can't,
Okay.
I'll be like, well, what the heck are you
Okay.
talking about?
Okay. Okay. Good. Well, I guess my point is that if you're an adult in a little body, if you're a child considered an adult, then your spiritual consent would be much younger than what your legal consent might be.
Yeah.
So
I
they kind of look the other way. The problem then becomes you putting off you wanting that. So the problem is never that like this happened to you. It's that you were creating this for yourself. So you created an assault for
yeah,
yourself. And so who needs to be handled there is you, not
right.
necessarily the person. And it's funny, did you catch in the trial that somebody said, "Oh, you can't fuck with me because I'm an upstat." That's what Danny Masterson said. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's a literal policy letter. That is called ethics protection. And it literally says if somebody is upstat, they have ethics protection. I've used this. I've used this to like not have to get grounded when I didn't clean my room because I had like done all this other stuff. Yeah.
Oh my
So my
gosh.
stats are up. You can't take that away from me. Yeah. Um, and so that's really interesting because he also is a generational Scientologist. So there is this
Right.
kind of idea that like, hey man, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm creating this product I'm supposed to create. You can't touch me anywhere else. Plus, thinking that the law means nothing. I'm not
Right.
saying Danny Masterson thinks this, but the general culture of Scientology is like, you don't talk to the police. They're the outsiders. We handle this in house. And so you feel safe. So,
Right. So it's interesting because I think I commented on one of your videos that it sounds so similar to a lot of like fundamentalist Christianity, and even the cult that I was kind of part of. Um, and it sounds like the manifesting like spiritual woo woo culty stuff that I was a
mm-hmm.
part of in two separate ways. So in like the Christian sense, this is only when you're married, because when you're Christian, you have to get married.
Right.
Everything has to occur within marriage.
Okay.
But that can happen really young. Like people in Christianity will get married at legal consenting age as soon as they can, so that
Right.
they can have intimacy or relations with their partner. And
Right.
however that goes is however that goes. You're not supposed to get divorced, but some people do. It's unavoidable down the road. But like
Right.
within your marriage, like you cannot harm your wife. Like a husband
Okay.
cannot like assault his wife in any
Right.
way. Are you familiar with the Duggar family?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so like Michelle Duggar would always say you have to be joyfully available
Okay.
for your husband. And I know Jane Doe 3, Scientology told her you're in exchange or out
Yep.
exchange if you're
Yep.
not. It
Yep.
reminded me so much of being joyfully available. Like you can't say no. There is no option of no in those situations.
Right.
Um, so like yeah, there's nothing bad happened to you. It's not possible. And then Christianity doesn't do this, but manifesty, spiritually woo-woo stuff does. And are you familiar with manifestation, or like the
Yeah.
concepts of manifestation? So like with manifestation, you manifested that. Like
Right.
some people will go to the extreme to say something bad happened to you, you manifested it. You chose it in this lifetime and you chose it for a reason. So if you're upset about it, you need to figure out what you did wrong to manifest that into your life. And a lot of times people will encourage others not to go to the police and not to report crimes because it doesn't matter. It was, you chose for it to happen to you. Right. And then the type of Christianity that I was in combined some spiritual like beliefs with Christian beliefs. So that's where I'm like, oh, it was so similar, because in a lot of ways they would say before you were born, you made an agreement or a contract with God to be born and experience this. So it's all victim blaming. Someone said we handle this in-house and then blame the victim. It's just all different weird culty ways of victim blaming and saying, well, too bad. Sucks that you had to experience it, but there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Which is awful.
It is so awful. And I feel like it's trickier when you talk about like maybe acts of, quote, God, or things that you can't control. You're talking about like illnesses and that's so frustrating. But then when you talk about like an actual assault, like this person actually like used my physical body in a way that I did not consent to. What are we going to do about that? And you still get the same answer when it's like, no, there are many other physical solutions right now available to us that we can do. Right. And so that, I don't know. I was looking for love in all the wrong places when I was younger. My father died when I was 12, and then my brother died shortly thereafter that. And my mom pretty much abandoned me. And that sounds silly, but literally she paid the rent on a 4-bedroom house in California with like a pool and a hot tub, and then she left. Wow. She was going to have me adopted over to this woman who she used to know, and the woman lived with us, but I was horrible to this woman. Horrible. 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 I don't know how else to say. If you can imagine a traumatized teenager who has experienced loss, who knows the only way to not get herself adopted to a stranger is by making that stranger hate her, I accomplished my goal.
Oh, no.
I've apologized to her, even though she's still a Scientologist. She did send me a thumbs up via Facebook message.
Oh, God.
And that's after my like heart felt like, hey, I was really young. I was really upset that I was being, my mother was leaving. My mom wanted to go join the Sea Org. She went to go get processing because my dad had died, and she was like really fucked up, which I totally understand. They were married for 18 years. One day he just drops dead at 47. Traumatizing, especially if she grew up in Scientology. So now she's got to look to Scientology like, why did this happen?
Right.
Part of her handling, she wrote him a big letter and put it in his pre-clear folder with her wedding ring and his clear bracelet. That was this letter that was like, hey, I'm so proud of you for like coming back to Scientology and remembering who you were. Like, we're okay. Here's all your shit. Like, way to go. Okay. And that was her like way to process it. And I thought, so there's a folder, a physical folder somewhere with like my dad. Just waiting for him on this idea that he's going to be
reincarnated back, and he'll know.
Probably to a Scientology family. One of these other second gen Scientologists could be like, my dad. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he already did go. So many stories like that, like that they're going to come back and just remember who they are and pick up where they left off. And I don't see that really happening. There's been a lot of time. For that time.
Well, we're still waiting for L. Ron Hubbard to come back, right?
Yes. Have you seen that guy, the L. Ron Hubbard 2.0?
No.
Shut the front door as soon as we get off this live. There's this guy. I'm not going to remember his name, his other name. He literally named himself legally L. Ron Hubbard, and he had this thing, L. Ron Hubbard 2.0. This is
Stop.
not a joke. He convinced so many independent Scientologists. He had tattoos on his face.
Did he? He convinced
Yes,
people that he
he
was?
convinced people that he had come back and that he had like OT 9 and 10. Like he came back with new information, new processes, and new
Oh my
ways
God.
to like revamp Scientology. Tony Ortega talked about him a couple times, but I think Tony Ortega was even like, I don't want to give this guy too much screen time because
Yeah.
now he's
Yeah.
like back in jail in like Nebraska or something. And it's funny
Wow.
because the experts were able to ask him, look at his social media and how he talked about it. And the one thing that really struck me is he did not refer to Mary Sue, L. Ron Hubbard's wife, as like Susie. He called her like
Oh.
Mary Sue. And that just sat.
Interesting.
So I made a mental note, if I'm ever going to like impersonate anybody, you got to get
Yes, you.
there's love names down.
Yes, the
No, you got to
nickname.
look it up. It's bonkers. People actually believed him. There's this whole field of independent Scientologists. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I've heard different people talk about it. Yeah.
It's crazy. My heart kind of breaks for them because they still
Yeah.
subscribe so much. But then I also think maybe this is a ladder, like a rung on the ladder of deprogramming.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there who really fell for really wanting L. Ron Hubbard to have come back. And I think they gave him a lot of money. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No,
And
not the money.
yeah. And of course, the money. That's probably how they knew it was him. They were like, are you sure? Give me your money. Okay. It's him. It's
Wait,
him.
that's
This checks
hilarious.
out.
That's how they knew.
That's how they knew. But he
Oh
had
my
like
God.
a record. He'd been in prison, jail or prison. And he had like, I don't know, they look like prison tattoos or something
Yeah.
on his face, which I just think is great. I just think it adds like another layer
Yes.
that, and he said his story was basically like, I didn't know I was L. Ron Hubbard until I went to jail and I found Dianetics. And I was like,
gosh.
yeah, you thought
Interesting.
I'm gonna sign up and see what I can do to these believers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been hoping someone would do that. I kind of hate that he did it to the independent Scientologists, though. Like,
Well,
those are the ones that I feel like nobody else needs to be taking their money. I wish David Miscavige like paid him money. You know?
I'm sure people have come. You want to know something? Let me tell you.
Tell me.
I will. I'll do two things. So I did a podcast with Aaron from Growing Up in Scientology once, and either I censored myself because sometimes I say things in my head and then I go no no no, and I win and I don't say them. But I'm pretty sure I said something really inappropriate and he edited me out. But basically, in Scientology, you could believe that you are L. Ron Hubbard reincarnated, or you could say that you were one of the body thetans that was attached to him that he audited out, right? Because he went all the way up through all the levels, so he had all these clusters that were like, from T-Jack dropped with the atom bomb. You know where
Right. Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
with all this. Okay.
Yeah.
And so where did those go? Right? They would have been rehabilitated. They would come back as Scientologists, right? I mean, if you're talking about the perfect scheme of it. So in theory, there are people out there who would be, by their own logic, body thetans rehabilitated of L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron
So
Hubbard.
one of those guys could have come out of his. And that's the person that I want to meet.
Be L. Ron Hubbard.
That's the person that I want to hear. Like, tell me about yourself.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That would be the best.
I'm sure
possible situation.
Yeah. Well, L. Ron Hubbard, I think, was impotent, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. This is how deep my research has gone. Some people, I forget who, Jerry Armstrong, I believe, he was an early biographer of L. Ron Hubbard, and he was hired by the church, but then he found out things that the church didn't want to release, and then they went after him. So he found some diaries from back in maybe post Jack Parsons era, but right around then when he was using affirmations, and he wrote like
Mm-hmm.
all these affirmations. He was like, I'll probably quote him wrong, but like, I am a god and man is my slave. And then
Yeah.
he basically talked about how much manpower he had in the
No
groin,
way.
and it very much read like a like the version of a yellow Ferrari, like an overcompensation, like he's
Yes.
affirming for what he doesn't
Yes.
have, kind of
That
things.
is so freaking hilarious. What the heck?
That's where with that.
And now I feel bad because I want to because I have other questions to ask you, but I have a couple other things like directly related to the Danny Masterson case that I wanted to ask first.
Go for it.
So I'm like awkward transition,
No
but
worries.
here we are. So this is why I said I wanted to talk to you about Grant Cardone also,
Okay.
because some things kind of like reminded me of him. But Jane Doe too, when
Okay.
she was testifying and she was talking about how commanding and forceful he was
Yep. Yep.
about her coming over, and then even like while he was doing it, he was very like, do this, do that, like, and horrible. Tony Ortega said something about him being very tone 40, I think he said.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, Scientology lingo, I don't know yet. That's interesting. And then
Okay.
you had said, it reminded me because in your recent video, you were talking about grief being a low tone
Oh yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
So if you could tell me what tone 40 is, and then Grant Cardone, I haven't made this part of the Grant series yet. He has a story. He and his wife Elena talk about how they met and started dating. And he basically harassed her until she agreed to go out on a date with him. They met like on a movie set somewhere or doing something, and she was not interested in him. He met her like through a friend of a friend, and he was basically like, oh, she's really hot. I like, that's my wife, or
Mm.
that's who I want to be with. That's who I want to date. And so he would call her, and she was like, oh, no, like, I'm not going on a date with you. The man called her over and over and over for days and weeks and months and would leave her messages. Like, they're telling this like it's a love story.
Like it's
They are
funny.
literally
Yeah.
like, this is so sweet that he like kept pursuing me. And I'm
Right.
like, this is creepy as hell. And he basically said over and over, you're going on a date with me, you're going on a date with me, you're going on a date with me, until she relented and went on a date with him. And then the story is that he did so much research on her, which like stalking much because she wasn't talking to him. Like she wasn't telling him this. He was finding it out through other people while he was harassing her to go out with him. He figured out like things that she liked, so he took her to like a shooting range or something as like their first date, and she was like, oh, he was so charming, and I still wasn't super sure, but then he was very insistent on taking me out on another date, and I was like, this is creepy. Like the whole thing is so creepy. And so I like kind of connected all those dots, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that seems like a Scientology thing that Grant would have done, because this would have been right around the time that he was getting very serious into Scientology. And then the way Jane Doe 2 was describing Danny Masterson, like, you're coming over, you're doing this, and her thinking that might be his way of flirting. I was like, well, if you know anything about Scientology, it probably was.
Probably was. Could have been. Yeah. Yeah. So tone 40 is the very top of the Scientology tone scale. They call it, I wish I could put an image here, the emotional tone scale. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the purest form of intention that you can communicate and like summon. So you talk about woo woo, that'd be like the harmonious zone where you are manifesting. That's like
Yeah.
it.
Like
Like
in the vortex
that's it.
of
Yeah.
like commanding your manifestations. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also like enthusiasm. So it's seen really positively. It's not seen as a negative commanding. It's seen as
Right.
like you're just like making this happen. It's the purest form of expression. So that's tone 40. And then it's like emotions are quantified on a little chart with numbers all the way down past body death. so you go down. I'm not going to get them all. I had to actually one time memorize all of these,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
probably purposely blocked that out. If I tried hard enough, I could, but I'm not going to. Not going to.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like you come down from, you go to enthusiasm, and then you're going down to like interest, and then you've got like mild interest, then you go to boredom, anger, and then anger and hostility are 2.0. And this is important because above that is survival, below that
Huh.
is non-survival. So that's a
Interesting.
hard line. So below 2.0 becomes grief, sympathy, um,
Oh.
fear, anxiety. Yeah. So all of these,
Sympathy?
yeah, I know, right? And the
Wow.
way that it's portrayed is very it took me until I was far out of Scientology to actually understand that sympathy and empathy are different things, and
Yeah.
that it is a thing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I had empathy, but I didn't like, it's not a characteristics or a value that is discussed or taught in Scientology.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's so then you have body death, like, and then below body death there are a bunch of ways that the spirit, according to Scientology, can um exist. And so becoming objects, hiding. So we could talk about that maybe another day, because like
Interesting.
it,
Yeah.
you can for example, like my mom thought we had a ghost once in our like closet house, and she like, the handling if you're a Scientologist, if you have a ghost, is to go and use tone 40 to tell that ghost, go to the nearest hospital and pick up a new body. You are done here.
That's hilarious. It's so interesting how all these cults are so similar. Because in Christianity, if you think there's a ghost, it's probably a demon, and you just yell at it and command it in Jesus' name to go away.
Right.
Like, that's how you handle what you think is a ghost. I'm like, that is wild. Like, entirely
Yeah.
different language, but you're doing the same, like, thing energetically.
Right.
Energetically, like, you're choosing to say, like, go away.
Yeah. Like,
Gosh, that's
get
wild.
it. So then if you've got that tone 40, if you are training to be a Scientology auditor, like you are going to be on the other side of the e-meter, you're going to be hearing people's crimes. You're not the person paying the money. You're the person giving service.
Right.
Um, you want to be tone 40, because the commands and the questions that you're asking that person are supposed to go beyond essentially their subconscious. I'll use regular words, and
Mm-hmm.
impinge on that person to make them have a read on the meter that might be beyond their recollection. So say I'm interrogating you, and I
Mm-hmm.
would have to use tone 40 and say, like, have you ever farmed babies? And so that's like what I probably
Yeah,
paraphrase it, is one of the questions, right?
that's
And
wild.
I'm trying to train to get to this place. And in order to get
Right.
to this place of full command, full control, full,
Mm-hmm.
like you just, what you say is the will of
Yeah.
all. You
Yep.
do training routines. And so that's what I was talking about in my videos. You start with the baby training routines, which are like meditation and hypnosis.
Someone said, "Did you say farm babies?" Yes,
I
she did.
did.
That is one of the Scientology auditing questions.
I did. If you are ever, yeah, if you're ever subjected to a security check in Scientology, they ask you a lot of questions, including, have you ever bombed other planets? Very, and that's why you
Right.
got to be zone 40, right? Because it goes
Right.
beyond the person, and they're holding an e-meter. So the person asking this, their job is to say it and get a read on the meter. The meter means
Mm-hmm.
they're looking at a needle. It's like kind of like a lie detector, but it only measures one part. And
Right.
then when the needle moves, it doesn't matter what the person says. It's like, oh no, you farm babies. Tell me about that farm you had for babies.
Oh my gosh.
You're not leaving. They don't say that, but they'll just say,
Yeah,
oh
but you're not. Yeah, you're not
yeah,
done until they get to the bottom of it.
yeah. So
Man.
those training drills all get you there. They're step by step. One of them you learn. Long story short, at the upper ones where you go to a different classroom, You're paying a lot more. You're out of the introductory courses at this point.
Yeah.
You are learning how to control another human being. You're saying, look at that wall. Thank you. Walk. I forget the exact. I don't know if you say walk to the wall. I think you say touch that wall. And then they go over and touch the wall. And you say, thank you. And then you say something. And you're basically do over and over. Like, we're talking hour. People do this all day. And the coach is designed to be like, oh, well, I don't really feel like touching the wall. And you say, thank you for telling me. Touch the wall. And you only acknowledge certain things. You're trained on how that all works. So at some point, you are literally guiding another human being. Your hands are on their shoulders, and you are getting them to do the things. That's like commanding the ashtray. You are supposed to have this intention, this power of intention. And that is the game. I would imagine that's what I'm sure Grant Cardone talks about that.
Oh, yes.
That's it.
In certain ways, he for sure like talks about that. And,
Exactly. So when Jane Doe 2 is describing this scene, and I'm, reading this, I'm seeing, and I hope I don't get in trouble. I'm like really trying to be careful, but my opinion is that judged on what she's saying, he took these trainings that he had gotten in Scientology and he applied them to the goal that he wanted, which was Jane Doe 2. And the description of the flipping, they use she's just like, I don't remember flipping and a lot of, and to be honest, that was a trend that was happening, maybe not like all over the world, but that was happening in LA, in that crew. Everybody was flipping around.
Wow.
So,
but even all of this adds to like the credibility of it, like things that the jury can't hear, that that like it's like adds to like, listen, I can tell that they're telling the truth because of these things that like the jury can't even know or understand. Because knowing whether something's true or not, or happened or not, and getting it convicted in a court of law or not, like they're two entirely different things. Somebody asked if Scientology would disassociate with Danny. Like, it says, when will Scientology disassociate with Danny? Can you be a Scientologist in jail?
That's a great question. So I've thought about this quite a bit. I'm constantly amazed by the number of people showing up to support him. Right? There were 20 people.
So many.
Oh, yeah. And we're talking celebrities who are they don't have to do this, putting their name.
And Billy people who know the things that that you're saying, like people that know these things.
Yes. And so they have to believe. I truly think that they are in a bubble where they believe that Leah Remini has somehow orchestrated this entire attack because it's so, vile and filled with whatever the hell they say.
Like, they truly have to believe that this did not happen at all, that these are entirely fabricated stories.
I 100% believe that at this point. And even like, I did that whole thing. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I want to write an entire book on Danny Masterson, on Bijou. Like,
oh my gosh, I know.
If I could get some ink blots in front of that girl, just like, tell me what you see. What are we looking at here? Fascinating novel character type. But when I go back to it, I only can believe that she truly thinks he's innocent. Or maybe not truly. Maybe that's the wrong word.
Maybe Bijou has to have some inkling because she's probably experienced some of these things and has to be like, okay, like, has to.
If what Jane Doe 2 said was true, that he said that's it, and like flipped her over, that has had to have happened by now.
Had to
have happened. Absolutely had to have happened. But it's also going back into Bijou, just for fun here, into her past. Like, she she got into Scientology around the time it probably helped her with her dad. I mean, that whole situation, I would imagine,
Yeah.
helped her get through it or whatever the hell. So at this point, it's like, okay, it reminds me of my mom. My mom grew up in Scientology. My brother committed suicide. He was raised in Scientology. He was supposed to be great. And he like
Yeah.
didn't do what he was supposed to do. And I think that if my mom looked at that, it would be a crack. And then the dam would open. And at some point it's too much. Like people
Right.
talk about fracturing a human being with like MK Ultra or something. The same thing happens in cults because you end up with this
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance where you're like, if this is true, if it's true that my husband, I'm being bijou right now, obviously.
Yeah.
True that my husband did these things years ago and is now using the church that I'm a part of to, we're all doing this bullshit and it's not true. That's enough to break a human being. I mean,
Yeah.
you can believe whatever at that point. I think you
Yeah.
have to. And that's
Yeah.
where you
And
get.
well, I feel like reading the testimonies is like traumatizing enough. Tony Ortega has said being there, like these are graphic and
Yeah.
harrowing and painful
Yeah.
testimonies, and she's
Yeah.
been there the whole
The
time.
whole time.
Like
The
there's no way that it's not affecting her. And I'm sure with her being in Scientology that she's, on some level trying to rationalize, trying to block it out, trying to make excuses, but you're so right. Like there's no like that kind of stuff when you put that together would break
yeah.
a person.
Well, she had to get a new kidney.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's like directly associated, but
Yeah.
like, oh, you're falling apart.
Yeah. I mean,
Puppy,
stress affects your body. Like just
big
plain
time.
stress. If you have
Big,
anything wrong with you and you're stressed beyond belief, it's all
yeah.
gonna go wrong and get worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, poor Bijou.
Poor Bijou. I had not one person commented. Okay, so that Bijou series that I did, I didn't even mean to do. I was like,
Yeah.
who is this shit? What is going
Yeah.
on? Not one nice comment about her. Uh,
I Yeah, I've seen a lot of
yeah,
people say that she's mean though
yeah,
too, that like she's like a very mean person, but like
yeah.
poor girl, what she's been through, I'd
I
probably
don't
be
know.
real
Yeah, no,
mean.
exactly. See, and remember before when I was describing like that 14-year-old me who was like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna make this hell. I'm gonna
Yes.
make this hell. Like that's what that reminds me of. That it reminds me of like a really just a stuck adolescent in like
Yeah.
so much pain. And yet I think we all have a choice. There come cycles where we say, do I want to keep doing this? And you say, yeah, okay, and maybe she'll get out
Mhm.
of it. Here's something that I think I wish Scientology celebrities knew. If John Travolta, if Bijou, if any of them came out and said Scientology is blackmailing me, I don't want to be a part of them anymore, they would skyrocket to celebrity. We would
Yeah.
embrace them. John
It would be
Travolta, we don't
everywhere.
care how
Yeah.
gay you are. We don't
Yeah.
care. We don't care about, okay, you did some shit, you covered up, you were good to, like, we really don't care.
Yeah.
I think that'd be amazing. But
It would.
I think a lot of them, they have too much. The church records everything you say. They ask you if you
Oh,
farm babies and they write it down and they keep it forever.
yeah. Yeah. Who knows what these people have said? Do you have a hard stop at any time? Like if we go over an hour, are you fine, or do you have to stop right in an hour?
I'm okay. Does lives last an hour?
Oh, we can go as long as we want. I just wanted to make sure
Oh,
that you didn't have like a particular time that you needed to stop.
no, I could
Okay.
probably get out here in like another half an hour.
Okay.
You could see the light getting darker. I'm like so far away from my house. I'm hiding
Oh.
from everybody out in the greenhouse. So it might get darker, but I have a little bit longer for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to ask you more questions and then you like have to go. I want to be really respectful of your time. For people who are watching, if you could send us some like storms, like if you can double tap the screen really fast and like it, and if you are enjoying it, share it, because we're going to talk for a little while longer. We would appreciate it so much. We would love for people to see this. I feel like this is such a good conversation. And an important one. I think it's important for as many people to understand just about any cult and undue influence and how all of this works, because I think it's like it's really relevant to our world right now, and I think people are safer the more they know and the more that we share our stories.
Yeah.
Um, so
I love
I
all these.
wanted to ask you, I'm trying to decide what I want to know more in case I can't get to both of these questions, because I know we could do this again for
It's
sure.
okay.
I mean, I can. I would love to. Um, okay, so I want to know what it was like being on Scientology in the aftermath. Was that your first time like publicly sharing your story?
Yeah, pretty much. So my life though has been very overshadowed by my brother's death.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
himself on L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. It was like a whole scandal. It was a whole thing. So in the course of that, I felt like I had come out. I had been mentioned as a Scientologist, and so I felt like my identity in the public was a Scientologist
Right.
already. So when I came out, I wanted to like undo that. I was like, I don't want to be
Oh,
a with this.
I can
Um,
understand that.
Mike, the thing about the ex Scientology community is that they have been so warm and open and loving for the most part. To me. And
Yeah.
to, I don't think we all have this. Walking trauma is very hard, and we all have missteps. But anybody, for the record, anybody out there trying to leave Scientology, the minute you say you're done, there's an entire army ready. So just know that. I
Yeah.
did that. And so I was pleasantly surprised to find out. And we're talking to the point where I actually was saved from homelessness, not a joke,
Wow.
from another ex Scientologist, reaching out through another ex Scientologist and literally giving us a home where we still live to this day and helped us
Wow.
do like a process of payment and getting all right with everything. And that, so we're talking a hardcore army because you need it.
Yeah.
You really do lose everything. Now I'm going off on a tangent. So the experience was also kind of weird. I lived very rurally in Oregon. So the
Uh-huh.
nearest airport 5 hours away. So Leah and Mike flew in and drove to my population town that was 2,500 people. By
Wow.
the time I filmed, I already knew that my property had been sold.
Wow.
So I had nothing left to lose. Nothing. Um, I was super honestly so grateful because one of my good college friends who saw me through, I have like 2 or 3 friends who saw me through all this weirdness in my life and are still there. And I'm like, why are you still here? And they're,
Mm-hmm.
we knew you'd be okay. We knew you'd figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. One of them is an artist, and because my town was so small, we didn't have any makeup artists. The A&E hired her to come and be my makeup artist. So I
That's
had
so sweet.
so sweet. I had one of my best friends there with me, helping me and being able. So in between takes, when I was crying, she was the one.
Oh.
My husband, who's my boyfriend now, he took our 2 kids away from the house, so he wasn't there for
Yeah.
almost any of the filming, which we had talked about was probably. I definitely didn't want the kids there, but
Yeah.
it just worked out that they needed to be somewhere very safe with only somebody that I very knew they would be 100% safe with. I was having a lot of anxiety about that at that time. So
Yeah.
I could do that. They set up in my house. I had a loft and we all had to be very quiet. Like it was kind of, Leah was not impressed with my home.
She wasn't
She was not my home. They set up like a whole thing for her to like come and do her makeup, and she was like, I'm not going in there, like in there.
That is
But
hilarious.
yeah, but she left it for me because
Yeah.
I was like, it was a funny home. Like, anyway, long story short, I never saw her or Mike Rinder off camera at all. So
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
everything. Now Mike Rinder and I are way closer. Like, I could
Yeah.
emailed him before. I had written an article about an essay, I should say, about cutting ties with my mom, and I put that on his blog, like, I feel like almost a year before the show. So that was
Yeah.
probably the first time that I spoke out. And then I think the story about my brother breaking his arm and how that got him sent to boarding school was compelling.
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't told anybody that story. I wrestled for a really long time. Like, is that my mom's story, or is that is
Yeah.
it to
Yeah.
tell? I try to be very, very. I'm a writer. Stories
Mm-hmm.
are important to me. Stories are people's voices. I have so many stories of Scientologists that I don't want to take their story away and tell it sensational.
Right.
It. Um, and I'm very, very careful about that. So I didn't know if I could, but it really affected me. She told me that when he broke his arm, he was tone 40 about breaking his arm, by the way. The story goes, it was a birthday party. And my mom said, get up on the horse. And he said, I don't want to get up on the horse. And she said, no, you're going to take a pony ride. And he was like, if I get up on that horse, I'm going to fall off and break my arm. And my mom's like, you're going to fall off. Get up on the pony. So gets up on the pony, falls off. He breaks his arm.
Uh-huh.
Takes him to the hospital and says, okay, go into surgery. My like 4-year-old baby boy with your broken arm, go in to get reset. When he came back, he was a different person.
Wow.
And she said that she very soon came to understand that it was her that was re-stimulating him. So, um, so after I grew up in Scientology, I went on to get my degree in child and family studies. I have taken now many courses in child development, human development, and very much
Okay.
because I was like, that's fucked. Something's got to.
Yeah.
And so now
So that makes a lot of sense, like with your book. I was wondering
yeah,
because I've seen you mention it a little bit here and there. So I was wondering like where that came from, and so you're talking, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, yeah. So after that, my brother was sent to boarding school, Scientology elite boarding school at 8 years
mm-hmm.
old. And
Wow,
he never lived at home again for more than 3 months.
wow,
At and that's one of those examples of there's no age appropriateness. That concept doesn't exist, right?
right,
It is you are a spirit. Your body's really small right now, but like you better figure this out.
yeah.
Um, and so, what the hell was I lost my train of thought.
Oh, you were talking about your story, like the story. That story was very compelling, and you weren't sure if you should share it or not
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you weren't sure if it was your story, but they really liked that story.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing about it. That's what started everything. I was sent to boarding school at 8 years old because my brother was sent to boarding school.
Right,
I mean, he graduated high school at 14. One could say I graduated high school at 14 because that was sort of what was set up
right.
for us. So I did eventually feel like, okay, I'll tell this story, but it was really hard. I'd never told it to anyone. And then it was on TV, and then it was on Hulu, and then it was on fucking
Next.
Netflix. I
Yeah.
said that I tried to unalive myself on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh my
Cool.
gosh.
You want to know what? I'll tell you something. The minute I saw that, I made I say a promise. I hope it's a promise that I can fulfill. My heart and goal and intention is I'm going to get my freaking name up there on Netflix again. And it's going to be for a story
I
I
did.
wrote. It's going to
I
be
love
on
that.
the book by
Yeah. It's
Liz
it's
Gale.
so interesting. And the reason I wanted to ask is because I mean, yeah, I know people want to know, like, what was it like working with Leah and Mike and, all of that stuff. But especially if it's your first time, like, being public with your story, a
Yeah.
lot of times when you're coming out of this lifetime of literal trauma
Yeah.
and whether you've gone through the process of deconstructing and realizing it or not, the first time you share it, publicly and like go through and tell the story
Yeah.
yourself, even if you've like, even though you remember, even if you've told it to your best friends or your
Right.
spouse, the first time you stand up and like actually tell it is a wild ride. Like
Wow.
so much, no matter how much you prepare yourself, no matter how fine you think you'll be, no matter what happens, I feel like it's the first like big, like cathartic and good in a way, but also like horribly like you need so much support. And so I was wondering like if was your experience, like if that's what that felt like, if it was a good experience and you were glad. I know it seems like you're saying that's not what you want to be known for. Like
No,
you
it was a
don't
good
want this to be the only thing.
I mean, if I
But
chose to speak out and that was the platform I was immediately given, that's
yeah,
beautiful. No one can
yeah,
ask more than that. When you finally say, okay, I'm ready to open my heart into the world, I'm going to tell my story. And someone's like, bam, okay, you're on Netflix now.
yeah.
That's, that's great. And they did me really, I was, how do I say this? I was very scared because it's a TV show. And I know
Right.
and I know it's this, but it's a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually Facebook friends with the director, the like main director guy. He was so
Yeah.
kind. And afterward, and he said,
Wow.
"Hey, they all felt sorry as fuck for me." Start with that. There were moments when I was down doing the camera thing, and they were up in my loft. And I tell you, it's all one big room. We had to be quiet. They were all crying, like
Oh
they
my gosh.
were. And I kept apologizing for my mom, right? And I'm being,
Yeah.
she was raised in
Oh,
a cult too. She was raised in a cult too. Like it's
right.
us, but she was raised in a cult. And
Yeah.
he came up to me after and he said, "Is there anything that you don't feel good about that what you said? Do you want to tell me anything? And I will make sure it doesn't go into the."
That's
And that's
incredible.
and so my response is I said, "I didn't say anything. I'm not that stupid." And my son goes, "That was so rude, Mom." And I was, "Oh shucks." So then I went to, "I'm sorry. I was not trying to be rude. I'm,
Yeah.
I apologize." And now we're friends on Facebook and have been that whole time. And he's a great
Wow.
person, you know? So there's a lot of camaraderie. That said, and this is what I have to put out there because I end up being sort of this Pollyanna sometimes of ex
Yeah.
Scientology because I'm like, hey, I got a house and I like, I mask pretty well. Um,
Yeah.
I also have two children that I help you mask because you have to keep it together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there were some people who were done pretty dirty by this,
Oh,
by
really?
yeah, by legal on the show.
Yeah. Well,
I know
yeah,
one,
because it's not just like when you do a TV show with, especially with a network like that, it's not Leah, it's not just Leah and
right,
Mike, it's
right,
not even just Leah and Mike and the producers. Like,
right,
really, the final say is A&E and
totally,
probably legal and like, and they're
yeah,
probably the ones like whoever does posts, like those are the ones that decide. Like, I'm
yeah,
thinking it's incredible that they're even asking you, oh, do you want us to make sure this doesn't go in? Because
right,
sometimes when you say something on camera, like
yeah, and
it can be used. No one's gonna care. Yeah.
exactly. I don't know if he would have honored it. I don't really, I don't know, but it struck me as like, wow,
Right.
you that feels good, or I just fell for it, one or the other. But it feels
Yeah.
okay. Um, but I know the problem is when you start talking about assault and you start talking about unconvicted crime.
Uh
Like I
huh.
have a whole aspect of my family and a whole aspect that's unproven and
Yeah.
alleged. I didn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I also know somebody who filmed an entire episode, opened her heart, told her story of assault. She lived in Clearwater, much younger than me, so much fresher out, everything, lived in Clearwater. And at the end of the day, they didn't air her episode because they got pushed back from the church and that, it was just too
Yeah.
litigious. And
Gosh.
it was very damaging to her. And so then the Aftermath Association sort of worked with some of those people and kind of tried to catch some of those falls.
Yeah.
Um, some
Yeah,
people,
because like
Yeah.
like I was saying, like the first time you open up and do that
Yeah.
publicly, it's I don't even have words. Like I literally can't even describe because it's so good and so hard and like it
Right.
can be so amazing, but I can imagine if it doesn't go the way you were anticipating, that it could be like almost another trauma like on top of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. That's what I think happened to two people I know for sure that were
Yeah.
one who aired and one that didn't were yeah, one of them was, I don't know who paid for it. It was either Leah or the show or this aftermath. I don't know, but like she got some real inpatient care
Oh,
that she
oh
that she
good.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably needed before filming, but
Yeah.
definitely um that extra support like, and I wish that could have happened like across the board. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not very noisy. I have a hard time asking for help, so I wasn't gonna,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think that's something that I've kept in mind, and that's something that's different maybe when you're not used to the spotlight and have done it before. Because I hope to tell people stories and I hope to carry on doing this for a long time. And I'm very mindful of how like weird it was me just on my own TikTok sharing my story and how like unexpectedly like sad I got and like it was a whole thing. And so I always want people to like know that they can possibly expect that and have like I always ask people or I try to ask people like do you have support if you've never done this before and you've never spoken out before, do you have a support person, whether that's a therapist, a best friend, like do you have someone that can be there with you during or after, because who knows like how this is going to feel for you as you
right.
like tell this story.
It's crazy. And I personally have taken so many calls of like psychologists because the thing is unless you've spoken out, you're not safe. So someone who's come on TV and been like,
Wow.
fuck these guys, you can tell for sure they're not a mole, they're not OSA, they're not gonna like turn you in later. It's not a trick. And
Right.
that's paranoid that actually happens. So it's
God.
um so I've talked to a lot of people before. I'm always willing, to
Yeah.
I can't take on a person's entire
Right.
rehab.
Right.
Um, I definitely try to be there for
Yeah.
sure. Actually,
So
you're one of
can
my favorites,
oh
by
sorry,
the
go ahead.
way.
What?
You are you are one of my favorite creators because of your approach. Oh yeah, to all of like approach everything. It makes me feel safe, and I love you.
Thank you. I'm like taking that in because
You
that
yeah,
is something that definitely is at the forefront of my mind that I hope is coming across. So for you
totally.
to say that, I'm like,
I,
wow.
I you're onto something for sure.
Thank
You're
you. I appreciate that so much.
yeah, of course.
So can I
Yeah.
ask you if you I know, I'm like, did we just become best friends? Um so have you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but have you been fair gamed? Was it before or after the show? And is it something that you still deal with from being on the show?
Um, that's a great question this is probably where my naivety and the Pollyanna comes in. I have possibly been fair gamed, but I don't have um any proof to say it. So
Mm,
I tricky
can't
time.
say.
My parents were both trained as OSA, which means Office of Special
Oh
Affairs.
no.
So my stepdad actually, I'm talking about my stepdad because he's the one around. He was an old school Guardian's office. So like he was on like the Apollo. So we're talking about a ship way back in the day. He's very heavily in. So I think when both your parents are OSA, you don't really I don't know if they fair gamed me or they just talk shit because they're upset with
Yeah.
me. I don't really
Yeah.
know. the difference there. I I'm scared to find out. I have not been harassed.
Yeah.
I lost everything, and since then I worry a little bit, but nothing overt.
Nothing super like overt and crazy. Because that's why I was wondering, because I was like, I feel like they're being either more sneaky about it because they can't be as overt about it
They can't.
because of the show.
Yeah,
And because of even the podcast like being called Fair Game, and like that being kind of the first topic of what they were talking about, if they
right.
try to be overt about it, people are gonna clock it real fast and
Real,
talk about it publicly, and they're gonna get caught. Like you can only do this shit for
yeah.
so long.
I joked that that's my kid's college fund. This is literally protecting myself. This is it. I don't have money like Leah.
Yeah,
I don't have all that. So when I'm
yeah,
going on here like talking about my life, for one, I'm always 100% honest
yeah.
because they can't be litigious if I'm talking
If
about
you're
my,
telling the truth. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um,
Yep.
but I have panic attacks. Like I put this one video out, one of my first ones, and it got to like 300,000 views. And I had only been on TikTok for like a week, and I had like a full blown panic attack, and people were asking, like making comments like "stay safe,"
Oh
and
gosh.
I'm like, I don't know how to stay safe other than to just be completely transparent. I
Yeah.
take a consultation with a private investigator in my
Interesting.
in Salem, and I talked to him, and he was really cool. And he told me he had done work before for Scientology, and that they have endless pockets, and that they absolutely call him to check up on things.
Oh
Um,
my god.
and at that point, he asked if I wanted to put a retainer down, and I don't.
You don't
He
have, yeah.
lowered $5,000 for me because if I had him on retainer, then Scientology couldn't hire him against me, and he's the
Wow.
one guy in town, and it's like I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I wrote him back. I said, hey, and he left it open. Like I said, I want to put a book out. Like I hope to do more, get more quote popular and make more awareness. Maybe I'll really be able to hire you one day. Um, but it didn't make me feel any better.
Yeah, no kidding. People say that stuff to me all the time too. Like not just about Scientology, but like just all the different things. I've been
Yeah.
talking about like LA, like celebrity churches
Oh
recently.
yeah.
And like with those, people are always like, stay safe. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, what is Selena Gomez gonna like knock on my door and be like,
Get your
listen,
camera.
lady.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I feel like I'm really naive to that stuff too, because I'm like, what are they gonna do? Like, what are
Right.
they gonna? I'm just telling stories that other people have told, hopefully in an honest way for them. But I'm sharing public information. So like I've never had any kind of threats or anyone, except the only thing that made me like wonder is with the Danny Masterson series that I've been doing, just the slew of comments that I've been getting. I can't tell if it's just gross men or
Yeah.
if it's like gross men and like Scientology plants or like
Right.
people that they want to like discredit those videos. Um, because, and one of them actually said, you're using the word cult as a slur. You can't, in this context, you can't use that word. Like you're being discriminatory. And I was like, red flag, red flag, red flag. Scientologist. So I replied to the comment and I said, Scientology plant much? And they deleted the comment. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
maybe these people are right. Maybe the Scientology spies are like in my comments, like watching and paying attention. And I just think that everything, like, I don't know. But yeah, when people tell me all the time, stay safe, I'm like, from
I
what?
hate
How? Like, what does that mean? You know?
that. I hate that comment. Stay safe.
Yeah.
I'd rather somebody just say, watch your back, bitch. That's what they're saying. Just say what
Yeah.
you mean.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Well, I don't know. I've worried about my plan has always been I live in a small town.
Uh-huh.
So I figure like the more people that know um who where I've come from and
Mm-hmm.
like the better off it is. Like, I can ask the PTA, like, hey, have you guys heard any weird stuff about me lately? Like,
Yeah.
but when my small town, when they were filming, I got multiple text messages. Like, Leah Remini, there's one bar in town. She went there. Well, actually, I think she went there and didn't eat her whole meal there. Don't blame her. But whatever. But nobody knew who she was. Such a small town that people were like, some rich lady got out of the car. Like, two people knew
Uh-huh.
who she was. And so that kind of protection, though,
Yeah.
is key to me. And but I don't know how good these private eyes are, or I don't know if they
Right.
care, I don't know what they would care about with me, to be
Right.
honest.
And like
There's
what would they do? Like,
yeah, my life is
yeah.
already fucked.
Right? Like they've already done it. They've already ruined everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Um,
what are they gonna
one
do?
thing that, like, I don't actually, my book does not mention Scientology. I created a whole cult.
Oh.
It's
Okay,
a
so we need to do this again because I'll ask you all kinds of questions about your book. But really quick, can you tell me what it's about and like what you've been working on? Or are you
yes.
saving it?
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, but it'll come out clunky. Like, I don't have the perfect blurb
Oh,
all
that's perfectly
out.
fine.
But I'll tell you this. My grandma got my family into Scientology. She died before I was born. And I always wondered, like, what the fuck would make a person get involved in this group? And then later I found out that my grandfather, her husband, was a pedo, um,
Yeah,
uh,
I
whatever.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and so then I immediately created this story that must be why. It must have been a way to save us. There's only one way to be you have to
Uh-huh.
be so desperate. And
Mm-hmm.
this whole unraveling sort of took place artistically. And also, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was raised pretty much believing I was my grandmother reincarnated.
Oh no!
So if I want to bitch to somebody about why my whole family's in Scientology, guess who I got to bitch to?
Oh
Me.
gosh.
Yeah. So that's the start of my novel. And then honestly, all this shit that I absorbed, all those people's stories that I can't tell because they're not mine, I wove into this world of fiction. But my hope is, my true soul and hope and intention on this project, honestly, is everybody always says, like, but how? How does a person
Yeah.
how does a person get that far in? And you have tell-alls and you have celebrity documentaries
Yeah.
and stuff, but it's like, no, you need to be this person that is so
Mm-hmm.
desperate and has such an unsurmountable, unanswerable problem that they would literally do anything and take
Wow.
that ride for a minute.
That's
So,
a genius idea, actually. Like,
is it? I was just trying to be.
yes. No, that is so smart because I'm like, I'm going down this whole path. So, coming from like the coaching industry and business coaching, I was trying, and even in like the Christianity space, I was taught to be what we called prophetic. So, I gave prophetic words to people, and it was kind of like being psychic, and people
Right.
would come, it was prophetic ministry, and people would come wanting to hear from God. And so I would pray, and sometimes it was like three of us or just one of us, and I would pray and ask for words from God for them. And I was taught how to translate what I heard, saw, or felt in my being, body, mind, whatever, and translate that into kind of like a psychic message.
Wow.
And so from that, going into like a coaching arena, I was always someone who felt like I had to have answers for
Yeah.
everything, and I never felt like I felt like I was just fumbling my way through life and didn't really have answers, but I at the same time I was trying to position myself as someone who had at least some answers that I and like advice that I could give other people. with no therapy training, no like education above some college classes, you know what I mean? So for like all of my 20s, really, most of my 20s, I was trying to be someone that knew something that had answers. So as
Right.
part of my deconstruction, I have tried and I cannot touch giving people advice anymore. Like I've even thought about, you know, helping people through deconstruction and spiritual recovery, like just as a coach, as a support person, like anything.
Mm.
And I'm like, I cannot get myself to do it. I cannot be the person that gives the help or the answers anymore. I can't. The
Yeah.
only thing that I've done that I makes me feel better, that I feel like I can share, is creating, sharing stories. Even though I'm telling people's real stories, I'm taking in information and
Yeah.
telling a story. And I create art, and I learned abstract expressionist art and have been doing that for a while. And like getting whatever is in here out on a canvas is amazing. But I think story, we learn as a society, as a group of people, from telling stories
Yeah.
just as much, if not more, sometimes, than we learn from, like, this is what a cult is. This is the bite model.
Right.
Like, this is, you know what I mean? Like, all of that stuff is so, so important and so necessary. And I've learned so much from it. But coming at this from like a, what is it, fiction or nonfiction? Wow, my brain is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like from a different perspective, instead of like trying to educate, like, this is this,
Right.
this is that, this is what happened to me, this is it. Like, you're coming at it from a creative angle. And I truly believe that like creativity is a huge way of how we process, how we heal, how we learn,
Yeah.
without, with, you don't have to do anything. You just read it, or you just look at the painting, or you
Right.
just create it, or you write it. And I think it's important and necessary. So to like hear that you're not writing another tell-all, or you're not writing another nonfiction, like I
Right.
almost thought, because you had mentioned children in Scientology, and because I had known your story of being third generation and your brother, I thought you were maybe writing a book about how children in Scientology are affected by
Mm-mm.
being in Scientology, and how children in cults are affected. Like that, I don't know, that's just where my brain went. So I'm like super excited to hear that
Yeah.
you're like taking a whole different angle,
Yeah.
because I think you're right, it's untapped right now. Like no one's really doing that. And I
Right.
think people, by exactly what you said, reading someone going through that journey
Right.
and going down that path, might unlock something in their brain that otherwise wouldn't be unlocked if
Right.
just hearing someone else tell, this is what happened to me. You get to like be more, like it's more of an experience.
I hope so. That's like the goal. Yeah, like you can learn about a roller coaster and you can watch it go by, but if you're on it,
Right.
totally different scenario. Yeah. And there's a
Definitely.
freedom too. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know everything that happened. So if I
Yeah.
wrote all, I would get slammed anyway because
Mm-hmm.
legal wise, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, being raised in Scientology and the shit I've gone through in my head is burnt. And
Yeah.
that's in the novel. Plus, I kind of go off the deep end. I'm really excited about it because I wanted to be like when I deconstructed and I came out of Scientology. I didn't have an identity before that. I was literally born into it. I was
Right.
raised as a child believing I was a reincarnated Scientologist.
Mm-hmm.
So my worth, my identity, all of that, when that left and I was starting out from nothing, I made one promise that I knew was true, was to live an artistic life. And I fail constantly, but I'm working on it. Um, and I had a moment that I remembered when I was 8 years old, walking in, because I went to that Scientology boarding school, and I was like walking up the stairs, and there's kind of a low ceiling, and you hit the ceiling. And I thought, this is surreal. This is not, I was 8, right? Like, this is not a normal life. One day I'm going to write about this and I'm going
Wow.
to tell everybody about it. And it was that feeling. Maybe it was tone 40. But
What's your tone 40?
it was that feeling in my heart of like, it gave me hope though, that like, it doesn't make sense now, but maybe one day it'll make sense. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But it's safe to people, right? Like I
Yeah.
could learn the about Mormons and about how their
Mhm.
church was coercive and all this stuff before I could accept Scientology was.
Right.
So if you have sort of a safe um imaginary world, like little kids,
Hmm.
they do dramatic play, which is like
Yes.
trying roles and these experiences, and that helps you
Yeah.
cognitively and emotionally evolve. And so that's anyway, I could go on forever. That's
I
my
love this.
yeah.
I'm like, no wonder we connected and like got along so well and liked each other's content.
Yeah.
Like wanted to do this because we are
So
like totally getting it. That's amazing.
yeah, I
Oh,
totally that. Kindred hearts right here.
yes.
Uh, I'm very impressed with your knowledge and like how I strive to be better at storytelling, and I think you're really really good at that. Maybe one day we could, I don't know, collab somehow. We can do
We
many.
That would be amazing. I would
Yeah,
love that. I would love to figure that out. Oh, well, thank you so much. This is like the best thing ever.
I've had a thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And we
If you want to,
definitely,
we should.
huh?
If you want to do it again, we should.
Yeah, I think we totally should. I feel like we have a whole nother, like, so much more stuff that we can talk about besides,
Do you comment?
yeah, besides dumb old Danny Masterson. Like, this definitely, like, took a turn. I can't wait for this verdict to come out because I really felt strongly that I needed to cover this story in this way. I don't know why, because it became super overwhelming. And I've wondered at times if I was even doing a good job, especially because of all the comments. Like, whatever side of TikTok those got to was crazy. But it's been like exhausting and like
Yeah.
hard to read and hard to hear.
Yeah.
And because it's been so long, not knowing if these women are even going to get justice or not is like terrifying to me. And then I'm like, if someone completely on the outside of all of this is terrified, like I can't imagine what these women are going through. And like, it's just so much. And so, like, for the first time ever, I'm like, I don't ever want to talk about Danny Masterson ever again. Like, I literally never want to speak of him again. I want this verdict to come out. I don't ever want to think about him, not one more time for the rest of my life.
The sad thing is, so I believe these victims. I believe what
Uh-huh.
happened to them.
Oh, same.
However, I don't know that if I was a juror and I was actually going by the letter of the law that I could
Right.
convict him. And
Right.
that scares me because I believe them.
Yeah.
And I
I
still
know.
make that distinction. And that's my concern. And then, and Scientology is, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. His reputation will obviously be forever
Hmm.
marred. But
Yeah.
I've had a lot. There have been so many court cases with Scientology where they were trying to do arbitration and trying to do this and that and just get shut down. And I hate to be a skeptic or like a cynicist, or cynical. I feel like we need to steel our hearts a little on this
Yeah.
one because really could, it really could go the other way. And the onslaught that will come from that, in my opinion,
That's what I'm
will,
afraid of.
yeah, the
Yeah.
tidal wave is really hard. Not because I feel threatened, but because I will want to scream, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't, it's, and I hate the fact that for those 20 people that have sat on his side that do believe that he's, in my
Hmm.
opinion, believe that he's innocent, if he gets that not guilty verdict,
That will
they're never,
validate that delusion.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
never, that's a nail in that coffin of that bubble. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like Bijou, think of Bijou. Like
Hmm.
that's another kidney.
Yeah. Do you want to answer this question really quick? Do you guys think this will be a step towards bringing Scientology down altogether?
Uh, that's a good question. If that's assuming that the verdict comes back as guilty.
Right.
So yes, if the verdict comes back as guilty, what they will have done, in my opinion, I am so not a lawyer, but they will basically set a precedent or followed a precedent maybe that you can be putting internal church documents forward as
Yeah.
evidence, taken seriously. Here's the thing, and maybe it's fucked up that I say this. I was a Scientologist. I know that I could write a knowledge report on anybody and it did not have to be true. I have had people write knowledge reports and
Yeah.
not true.
Right.
And so the idea is, in a perfect world, they would investigate that and then there would be some sort of church documentation. Well, they don't have access to that. They only
Right.
have to the knowledge report. And so that I don't have
Yeah.
as much as I wish. Sorry.
My opinion, like being on the outside, is I don't necessarily this will be a step in bringing Scientology down altogether, just because well, I mean, it will and it won't. Because the thing that brings Scientology down is all these little things, right? Like, there's not going to be like a big thing that it's like, oh, finally we can start like dismantling the show. All of you that share your stories, anyone that spreads the message, those are all part of bringing Scientology down altogether. So I don't know if like a guilty verdict will change that, like will make that more of a step or less of a step, because we saw Scientology was only allowed to be involved to a certain degree within the trial. It is huge. And I do think my husband actually said the same thing. He was like, I want this to like set a precedent for
Yeah.
like these types of like organizations and these churches, that like you are still going to be held accountable. And I
Right.
actually am excited. Not, I almost don't want to cover it, but I almost also feel like the civil case
I have to
will.
cover that. Are you kidding me?
I know, but I feel like that will have more of a bearing on Scientology, because Scientology
Yes.
is named.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Scientology is named. So like with
Yes.
Danny, Scientology itself can choose to
Yes.
distance themselves from it. They can keep running this line of like, we didn't have anything to do with this. We shouldn't have been mentioned
Right.
ever at all for any reason. Mistrial. You
This
know?
crime.
Yeah. Like, they can ride that forever. But the civil
Right.
case, and the media did not cover this as much as I had anticipated. Like, really, it's
Well,
been minimal.
yeah. And
So,
even I forget her name, but there's like a really prominent TikToker who's been covering this.
yeah.
I remember her name. Anyway, she's the girl who covered the Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
yeah.
think I've seen
And
one or two of her videos.
she won't even say the word Scientology. She says, we're talking about this, and she points to the R word, and she says, and we're talking about this, but TikTok will not allow me to say this. So like and follow this video to push the algorithm. And maybe it's a little bit of a ploy. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's clever.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, like it's okay. We could talk about this. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Interesting.
yeah. And here's the other thing that I think we can never forget is that Scientology says it has the answers for everything, like cults do. So how can one of their it's the generational Scientologists, I think, that are gonna ruin it for Scientology. Because you can always say, oh, that one guy fucked up. That one guy's no good. But now we're dealing with a bunch of people raised in it. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're so perfect, how can you raise a rapist? How come
Yeah.
you can all these, unalivers? Like, you're
Right.
not that cool.
Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna put a nail in the coffin at all. I
Yeah.
wish to take him down, but I think what's gonna take him down is gonna have to be finding some hard evidence about money misspent that will take
Yeah.
away their tax exemption status. That is what will
Yeah. I've
do
heard
the trick.
several people, like, I think I've heard Mike say that during some of his interviews recently. I think
Yeah.
I've heard Tony Ortega say something similar. Even Aaron Smith Levin on his channel. Like, really, the only thing that will make a
Only
big dent in Scientology
yeah.
is getting their money to be sent
Getting
to the government.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, And that's an interesting, we should talk about that one day because, you know, in the civil trial with the Bixlers, they are talking about how they think their dog was unalived.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to do a series on it, but I found out four different exes or critics who are, they don't have proof, but they believe that their dogs were unalived. Yeah. And
Oh,
if you go back, I couldn't find them, but I'm going to keep going back. If I recall in my research, they harassed, there were like so many lawsuits were filed against the IRS and they individually harassed people.
oh my God.
So anyway, long story short, like there is a teetering there. If you could ever get back
Yeah.
to being reassessed. Why would a whale, like a very rich
Yeah.
Scientologist, a rich donor, you only donate because the tax write-off. You're not going to
Yeah.
donate $10 million to a non-write-off organization.
Yeah. There's no
So they're,
incentive to do that anymore. Yeah, they
yeah,
won't be
they're
able to.
dry up. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be so happy when Grant Cardone can't send millions of dollars to Scientology. He bothers me because he's in that
Yep.
coaching space and like the very
Yep.
MLME. Like I can't. He's one of
Yep.
those people that I'm just like, he
I,
triggers me. He
I,
gets to me.
well, and see, so I miss the Grant Cardone era as a Scientologist. I just
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
He's not the first Scientologist, like many cults. They're so with the MLMs.
Yeah.
Before was a guy named Feshbach. That was his last name. And there's a couple of brothers. Matt was my godfather, actually. And they made $1 million in the stock market in one day. I remember this day as a
Oh my
child
God.
because they were partners with my dad. But they got they made the trade and got the money, and my dad didn't. And so that was a hard day. Not It wasn't hard, like he was really upset, but you know, it's tricky when your partner makes $1 million.
Yeah.
You don't. And they had a
Yeah.
big party stuff. And they very much became this model in Scientology. They did a lot of investing for people. He was the first person to do the superpower rundown. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Uh, it's one of the newer processes. They built a huge building. It's supposed to like make your body perfect, your perceptions perfect. He
Oh
came
God.
out afterward. He had perfect vision.
Oh.
And I was talking to my mom about getting LASIK, and I was like, Mom, I want to get LASIK. She was like, don't get LASIK, get contact implant like Matt Feshbach did. And I was
Oh
like, wait
God.
a minute. I thought he had perfect vision. I thought he did Scientology and got vision. She was like, no, he has implants. They're contacts. It just I was
Oh.
like, and he's bankrupt now, and you know,
Yeah.
he's not the guy anymore and all these things, and you know, Grant Cardone is, but it's these types of celebrities, they are disposable. They're
Yeah.
just like, you know, until and when Grant Cardone is fucks up,
Yeah.
isn't popular anymore, it'll be the
Yeah.
next
It'll be the
cool.
next person. Yeah. I also want to talk to you next time about his kids and how he like
Oh
has his kids like
yeah.
literally give speeches. Because I thought you would have like a lot of insight into that. And then I'm gonna cover some Christian missionary organizations coming up here soon. I'm working on like potentially a really big project with those because they're really messed up. But this
Okay.
girl reached out to me and told me, she was telling me her story and how she got into this mission organization and said she was a child preacher. And I was like,
Okay.
hold on a second. Do you mean you were the child of a preacher and like that impacted you a lot? And she was like,
Right.
oh no. Oh no. I preached my first sermon by the time I was about 7 years old. And I was like,
Damn.
what?
Yeah.
That has to affect children developmentally. That
Ooh,
cannot be. And I don't know a whole lot about like childhood development. Like
okay.
I don't know. I'm super interested in psychology, but I don't know. Oh, my best friend has been on here this whole time. My other best friend shared this video for me too. I'm best friends ever. Tori, I love you. Um, but yeah, like I don't know exactly how that would
Right.
affect a developing brain, but I can imagine getting on stage and giving advice in that way because
Right.
because you are anointed is like a Christian word, or because like you are better than these adults that are listening to you has
Right.
got to mess you up. Like that cannot be okay.
Have you seen I'm sure you have, the clip of that one clip of his daughter talking about,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
uh, yeah. So she's talking about the same theory, the same idea that Jane Doe 3 was talking about, exchange.
Oh,
It's the same thing. So when
God.
that little girl grows up and her husband, it's the same thing. So, okay.
Gosh.
Well, before we go, I should mention there's this guy, Ian Falco. Do you know who I'm talking about? He's the son of Dr. Berg. He's a Scientologist, ex-Scientologist. He has a lot of viewers on here, a lot of followers.
Oh.
He that video and I saw it, and he just today posted a thing, black screen, saying that he was trying to raise money for his mental health. So
Oh.
I guess like I'm so sympathetic. Like I've had a couple breakdowns, not horrible
Yeah,
breakdowns. This is such hard. It's so hard to
it
like
is.
expose and talk about these things. I don't
Yeah.
know. So I don't know. I don't know why I said that other than just like,
I'll look into it. I'll message you.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
say,
Let's see. Yeah. Let's see if we can let's see if there's something we can do. I always want to help. That's been so heavy on my mind. Like I was saying earlier, just supporting people the first time they tell their stories. I feel
right.
like there's like, how do you help people? Because I've heard Leah or Mike, maybe Mike say this before because he said he's like not into like doing therapy and all that stuff because he had
Mm,
people telling him how to think for so long that
mm,
he's like over it and like doesn't want people to tell him
right,
how to think. So I feel like just coming out and just deconstructing, like that must
right.
be really hard. But I do feel like there's still like that is the biggest need is like support and like
Yeah,
mental health support. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything that we can do or brainstorm or just talking about it is probably just a good thing too. But
yeah.
I think that's
It's
so normal and
important
needed and important.
for
Yeah.
people who are like ex-psychologists. We did have one group therapy session once where I had
Ah,
10 Scientologists, second generation or
oh
more, all together.
wow.
It's very powerful. So anything I could ever facilitate like that, for sure. But
Yeah.
before we go, I'll tell you one more thing, okay?
Okay.
Um, so I also have a very hard time giving advice. Like
Yeah.
I will say to somebody like what I think, but I always am very like prefacing it with like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I
Uh-huh.
don't know, never know. However, I was working at a tap house like a couple of years ago, and a younger girl, she's like 19, 20, she was coming out of Mormonism. She's having some issues. We worked a lot together, and I never gave her advice. And then after like a few months, she said, Liz, you're the only person who's not telling me what to do. And I was like, what? She's like, you're the only person who keeps saying back to me, like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I'm just like in there just making food, like listening to this girl talk like about her boyfriend and her parents and this pressure. And I feel for her, but I also don't give a I mean, I care, but I don't care about all those influences. I'm just like, what do you
Right.
want? What do
Right.
you want? And
Yeah.
she said to me, like, you're the only person in my life that said that to me. And so I guess I just want to like soundboard that back to you as like there's
Yeah.
probably value in that as well as far as like a new way of coaching.
Well, I
Guess
feel like
what?
that's what coaching is supposed to be.
It's
You know,
supposed to
like I think
be.
that like the basis of coaching is asking good questions. It
Right.
just nobody does that because the way that people get other people to follow them and pay them large amounts of
Right.
money is because they're going to fix their life,
Right.
you
Look at
know?
me together. Like, do
Yeah.
that's why I have to question. No
Yeah.
one believes together. I don't.
You're like, I can't even
I
fake it.
don't.
I felt
Yeah.
the same way. I was like, I cannot pretend that my life
No.
is perfect. I could never do it. I tried. I could
Yeah.
never do
Yeah.
it. And now I think
Yeah.
that's awful. But yeah, no, thank you so much for saying that and reflecting that back to me because I do think that like it's needed. And I do
Yeah.
think that there are times when we need advice and want people to give us advice. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe in therapy, there are times when, you know, you want more instruction than others, but even therapists, like good therapists, ask good questions. And I
Yeah.
feel like, you know, especially coming out of these types of situations, the last thing that we should do is tell people what to do. That the
Right.
reason that they're there is because people told them what to do and it did not go well. That's how you deconstruct, is because
Right.
something breaks, something shifts. So like, yeah, I am a
And
firm believer in people having the ability to figure it out on their own with help and support, not with
right,
people telling them how to do
what
it.
to do.
Yeah.
But see, you can hold a space for that. Like somebody
Yeah.
has to hold a space for that. And
Yeah.
sadly, like if you're in the throes of not knowing your identity, it's you can't hold that space for yourself. It's very
That's
helpful
true.
to kind of be like, oh wait, you also get a say. So, oh
Hmm.
my gosh. Can we just like make this our therapy?
Yes, we need to do this weekly, bi-weekly.
Seriously, I'm
Yes,
so in. I'm so in. I've
I would
enjoyed
love that. Okay, well, I'll let you go because I feel like we could probably, I would keep you on
all
here
night.
for hours. Yeah.
I know. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'll message you soon. We'll figure out our next step.
Cool.
Thank
And thank you.
you.
And yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for watching and everyone who liked and shared and everything. This was fun.
This was
See you
fun. We'll
next
do it again.
time. Bye.
Bye. How do I get out?
I don't know. I was just like, oh, wait, I got it. I got it.
Okay, bye.